What up YouTube, Nate here, and today I'm shooting a video blog for you. Actually, this is the intro of the video blog. I finished editing it already, and basically it was putting together this sucker here in my ongoing quest to finally clean this room, which will never happen.
Spiderman, Spiderman, does whatever a spider can. He spins a web any size, catches criminals just like...
Feeling a little bit under the weather, so sorry if my voice sounds kind of weird. But today, instead, I'm going to document what I was originally going to call the Ultimate Spider-Man shelf. But I didn't want to confuse people with the Ultimate Universe in Marvel Comics. So this is the not too shabby Spider-Man shelf for cheap. I've already mentioned before, I've fallen back into love with comic books. You can see behind me, mostly it was video games prior to that, but yeah, comic books, statue collecting really has taken over. The first thing you may notice is this purple box from Gallery. It is a Man Pvc Statue. What it is that qualifies this for the inexpensive criteria of the shelf is that A, it's a PVC statue, which comparative to the polystone resin statues is like a fraction of the price, 1/4 sometimes. B, this is made by Gallery, which produces these en masse, which means there's a lot of them out there for people. It's not really exclusive or limited, which in turn, the availability of it makes it very inexpensive to the end consumer. I picked this one up from my local video game store for $49.99 minus my platinum membership there, which is an extra 10% off, which basically covers the tax. You know, for what you're getting on these statues, really nice. I'll review it more in depth when I get it on the shelf, but basically you're getting a well-made statue which has been sculpted by some guy who was probably a really good sculptor. Never heard of Jean St. John. The only complaint I have with these is you are getting what you pay for. It's plastic, and to some collectors that may be a big hindrance. Also, the quality of the paintwork isn't necessarily like when you're comparing it to a Sideshow collectible statue or even these Bowen statues. You'll notice it's very flat, like they don't do a lot of shadows and highlights in the painting. You're getting a very basic paint job on this, which is really cool if you're like a person who loves to do touch-up work and is really good with an airbrush. But at the end of the day, for me, it complements the shelf very well for really an inexpensive price. The next two big pieces you can see here are from Bowen Designs. You have the Black Symbiote Edition Spider-Man bust, which, you know, it's not a full statue because it's only the upper torso. And I chose the Black Symbiote version because to me this is almost the transitional piece that unifies as a Spider-Man character with the focus of the entire shelf to me, which is the classic Venom painted statue, also from Bowen Designs. Now, what qualifies these two pieces for the inexpensive criteria of this video is that they're from Bowen Designs. And just quick story from when I was growing up, coming out of high school, going to university, I used to love going to the comic book store, and Bowen Designs was like the man. That was the only company producing these polystone statues for Marvel characters. And even today, if you want to get some really obscure characters like the Prowler and Tiger Shark, you can only get those from Bowen Designs. Back then, they were the cream of the crop, but more recently, there have been companies like Sideshow Collectibles really pumping out amazing statues. But again, you're paying for the price of those statues. Where this Venom statue, one that compares from Sideshow Collectibles, is well over $1,000. And I got a lot of things I prioritize over buying a $1,000 statue. I'm not dropping a G on that. But on the secondary market, these Bowen statues have really fallen out of desirability as a result of these other companies coming in. So I was able to acquire these two pieces from my local flea market for really cheap, way less than the sticker price that they had it for on there. And in talking with a lot of the people who deal with these type of things in our city, a lot of comic book dealers, statue dealers and such, they were mentioning to me that people who've been holding on to these are probably just happy that somebody took them off the shelf. So if you see them in person, I would make a stab at them for way less than what they're asking for, because a lot of people are looking to unload them. I mean, don't go on eBay. eBay prices, I think, are really inflated when it comes to statues and busts from Bowen Designs. On eBay, however, this classic Venom statue, people are asking for like $900. And they may get that or whatever, but I paid nowhere near that. I probably paid Out of pocket, barely anything because I traded up for these, but the guy was asking $290, I believe, and I talked him down from that. This Amazing Spider-Man's Symbiote bust I got for under $60. I think it was like $55, but then again, that was all trade up money from trading in video games, which I may be done with. So there you have it. That's the meat and potatoes of this whole shelf. Now there are two other important pieces to the shelf that I want to share with everybody. Friend of the channel and honorary thrift dweller, Jesbo Vision. Check out his channel. He pairs all his statues with a comic book. And to me, if you're that person who does that, it almost legitimizes you. And one of the things that really perturbs me on YouTube are people who have these amazing collections. Maybe I'm just jealous. People have amazing collections of all these like statues, and the way they talk about these pieces, it's almost as if they have no understanding of the source material that it comes from, which is obviously the comic books. And by having a comic book on the shelf, to me, it pays homage and respect to the original source material of these statues. I mean, if you're into art, that's cool, and you just like the art of the statues, I guess, all the power to you. But, I mean, I hate it when someone has like a Batman statue beside a Kingpin statue. It makes no sense to have them together on the same shelf. Okay, I'm getting off track. First item I want to discuss, in terms of the comic book I want to add on this shelf, I was originally going to go with the 30th anniversary Spider-Man issue with the holographic cover. You see here, not really an expensive comic. This has the first appearance of Spider-Man in 2099, which is also an amazing design in my opinion. This is a comic book I grew up with. Not this specific one, but this issue I had like, I think I was in grade 2. Took it everywhere, well loved, and like the first time I fell in love with Spider-Man was because of this comic. This originally was going to be the comic I wanted to display this whole shelf with. However, in thinking, you know, the whole theme of the shelf was the Black Symbiote. And I recently acquired this comic book over here, Secret Wars number 8, which is the first appearance ever of the Black Symbiote costume, the Black Spider-Man costume. Little did Peter Parker know what that black ball coming down would introduce into the Marvel Universe, and to me that's really cool. So in the grand scheme of things, for the theme of this shelf, I decided to go with Secret Wars number 8, first appearance of the Black Symbiote costume. It just makes sense to me. How am I going to display that comic book? Initially, I was going to use this. This is like what your grandma would put her collector plates on to display it on her china cabinet. And over time, my fear is that, you know, you put a comic book against that, it'll bend back. But keeping with the theme of being very inexpensive, I found this. It's like a tablet holder for your tablet. Sorry, it was $2. What I really like about this, you can see in the back, you can adjust the angle to whatever suits you comfortably for looking at your tablet. But to me, for displaying this comic, it takes up a lot less square footage on the ground for me to display the comic. It gives me a better angle for viewing it on the shelf, and it has a higher back support. There you have it. That's all the pieces I'm going to add to the shelf. The second part of this video is, after I've unboxed it all, how am I going to configure it on the shelf? I think I got a lot of square footage here that I have to manage very well so that it doesn't look too cramped on the shelf, because that's one thing that also bugs me, crampedness. The one thing that I'm thinking about as I hold this item and as I unbox this item is that you are getting what you paid for. It does feel cheap in your hands, especially when you've just unboxed the Bowen statues. The thing he's standing on, the base that Spider-Man is standing on, is pretty tacky looking. It feels cheap, to be honest with you. The paint is a little flat, not a lot of detail work, which I mentioned before. But overall, for the price of this thing, it's not bad. I really wish I was proficient with an airbrush and I could touch it up myself, but I'm not. But as is, for $49.99 Canadian, minus 10% off from my local EB Games, this PVC diorama is not too shabby for the price. You get a lot of bang for your buck, in my opinion. Next up, I will unbox the Amazing Spider-Man Black Symbiote Edition Bowen Bust. You can see this is kind of like a variant. On the back of the box, it shows the, I guess, the original costume Spider-Man, which does look pretty sweet. to be honest. Now this one was sculpted by the Wachowski brothers. Not really. It was this one was sculpted by the Kucherek brothers. I don't know any of these people, but just want to give credit where credit is due. Overall, I like this bust. I like the blue color here. I think it translates from the comic really well. The pose is interesting pose. I don't know what they're trying to capture with that stance. Like, no girl, I don't want that. The one thing that perturbs me about this whole bust, which I really didn't notice it when I bought it, because this was on display before I bought it and he put it back in the box for me, was this base. Almost looks like a cheap Halloween prop that you would get from the dollar store. These spiders look kind of tacky. It is limited on the bottom. You can see here all the details. Of course, the main cornerstone of this entire not too shabby Spider-Man shelf is the Venom Statue. This thing is massive and heavy. It comes in 2 pieces. The base is really cool, actually. I like how there's like broken parts in the cement. And you got the top piece here, Venom, which is damn. Who sculpted this one? Okay, this one was sculpted by Ryan Terrificana, and dude, terrific statue. I like it. Classic Venom, painted statue, looks fantastic. The blue, kind of off-tone compared to the Spider-Man bust. I don't know if anyone else cares about that. It doesn't really bother me too much yet, but we'll see when we put it on the shelf. Lots of detail work in the paint. To me, the hardest part about sculpting and casting this whole thing is that mouth on Venom, but I think they did a pretty good job there. It would be cool if I could grab the other Bowen Spider-Man statue and Carnage statue. That would be like the ultimate Spider-Man shelf, but this is the not too shabby Spider-Man shelf for cheap. Yeah, very expressive, a very nice statue. I like it. I think it's a great quality. It feels way more premium and dense. Oh, I want to go out and buy more statues. So there you have it. That's my thoughts on all the items unboxed here today. I just finished putting everything on the shelf, and my biggest fear for putting everything like in the cabinet was square footage. I mean, that's a lot of on the floor square footage, real estate that I had to maneuver around. I did it in like flash speed, but it took a lot of readjusting and tinkering. It's just the way my brain works. It's very particular. A little centimeter here, millimeter there. Spider-Man almost kind of looks out of place on this shelf, to be honest with you. The comic is a black suit Spider-Man. You got black suit Spider-Man in the front foreground with the mini bust. You got the big Venom statue, which is like the centerpiece of everything. It's almost like Spider-Man stands out, and he doesn't belong on this shelf. So I tried a couple configurations without Spider-Man there, and it kind of looked better to me, but let me know actually in the comments below which one you would prefer, and I'll probably do that one, whichever one gets the most thumbs up rated. But for now, I'm going to leave Spider-Man on the shelf just for the fact that I have nowhere else to put him. To sum it all up in the end, the ultimate, not too shabby Spider-Man shelf for cheap turned out to be pretty good. I will say. The comic I put in there is not a high grade Spider-Man comic, so I didn't pay premium for it, but I mean, you don't, anything graded above a 6 in my opinion still looks good on a shelf anyways. So there you have it, the Ultimate Spider-Man shelf, this, or not ultimate, sorry, the not too shabby Spider-Man shelf for cheap. Let me know which configuration you like better in the description below. And that's it for me, Nate. Thank you guys very much for watching. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to be doing a lot more comic book stuff in the future. You saw in my room I have a lot of comics here bag and boarded. I might do actually comic book pickup videos just because the video games have been lacking. Lots of things happening here on Thrift Dweller. Thank you guys very much for watching. Thank you girls very much for watching. This is Nate from Thrift Dweller. Peace. Next up, however, I recently picked this up at my local comic book store for a lot cheaper than I expected to. Old Man Logan, really solid title. Obviously, the movie came out and stuff, so this Spider-Man or this Wolverine shelf here is gonna get revamped into the Old Man Logan shelf, I think.